Hi, I'm Owen from Bitesized Irish Gaelic, and I'm joined today by Karen Osberg, who we spoke to before in a video. Hi Karen, kunna sa tatu?
Tá mé go má
All
agus
good.
túsa?
All tell me anawa, gut. And today we're going to be talking about a couple of things, but basically to get straight into it, we want to talk about the difference between Irish and what you might call Gaelic or the Irish language. We'll discuss kind of the nuances between the different terms. And Karen did a lovely little experiment in Des Moines, or was it Karen?
It was.
It was in Des Moines. And we'll talk about that a bit more. And at the end, we'll teach you a couple of phrases about how to ask somebody if they have a couple of words in Irish. So, Karen, you've been, like, in your spare time, you set up a couple of years ago an Irish language study group, right? And just lately, I was speaking on Bitesized Irish Gaelic about how I call the Irish language Irish when I'm speaking in English. And I would say that Gaelic is something that I call to be something in Scotland. But you carried out an experiment, right? So
I
do you
did.
want to talk a bit about that? What happened?
Sure. I found myself shortly after we talked about this at a business meeting prior to the beginning of the workday,
Mm-hmm.
and the business meeting was run by an improv comedian. So when I walked in the room, things were very unusual for the day. There were no tables, no chairs, and the improv comedian ran us through a series of things that lightened everybody up, and it lightened the mood of the meeting. And so towards the end of it, I asked the director of programs if, when she closed the meeting, she would give me a moment to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
There were 67 people, men and women, in the room, and I got up on stage and I asked them a series of questions. I asked first, how many of you know that in Ireland they speak English? And everyone raised their hand.
Okay. So everybody, these are US based people, of course, they know that English is being spoken in Ireland.
That's right.
We've gotten that far anyway.
That's right.
Okay.
But I thought it was still early in the morning, so I thought I should start out with some basic. So then I asked if they knew that there was a native language in Ireland, and almost everyone raised their hand.
Mm.
Then, because everyone was standing up and I wanted to be a part of the fun for the day, I said, how many of you know that the language in Ireland is called Irish, Irish Gaelic, or you don't know? If you think it's Irish, stand on this side of the room. If you think it's Irish Gaelic, stand on this side of the room. And if you don't know, stand in the middle. And the result was very, very clear. There were 8 to 10 people in the middle of the room, and every single person other than that small group thought that it was Irish Gaelic.
Okay.
There wasn't one person standing on the other side of the room.
So just to be, that's pretty easy. Nobody thought that the native language in Ireland would be called Irish, right? And maybe 10 people weren't sure, but from what it sounds like, a good 55 people from that group would call that language Irish Gaelic, given that choice, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what happened.
So, what's your perspective on this? What were you expecting?
I actually really thought that there would be some people who knew that it was Irish, or who even simply guessed, because in France they speak French and in Germany they speak German. So I really thought there would be some people who thought that in Ireland they speak Irish,
Hmm.
and I was wrong. I was surprised though.
Okay. And if somebody talks to you, if they happened to talk about Gaelic to you, or if you spoke about Gaelic to somebody else, what do you expect that other person to understand by the general term Gaelic? Is there
Well,
a
I
concept, a
I think
country? Sorry.
I think they think that I do think they think it's Irish. However, I've brought up the fact that there are 5 or 6 Gaelic languages. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think that they're Manx, Scottish, Irish, um, Welsh. But then some people might say that those are Celtic. So
Yeah.
I don't feel like I know exactly where to take the conversation once I go into it that way.
Yeah, sure, yeah. The way I kind of see it, yeah, the Breton, Welsh, I don't even know the linguistic terms from it, but they seem to be another branch from the same kind of Celtic root. And what Manx, the Isle of Man Irish, I heard that a recording, an old recording of it, and it sounded like Irish to me. I don't know, was that the case? But it is being taught again,
Oh,
being revived in the Isle of Man. And then, yeah, like Irish, so what I call Irish, I think might be a bit jarring to perhaps say an American or even an Australian, I don't know, that they say Irish what? Like Irish Gaelic, right?
right.
So so just to be clear that I'll just say Irish, I mean the Irish language or what you might call Irish Gaelic or Gaelic, whoever is watching. And like I'm far from any linguistical historian, but what it seems to be was the Irish language, the Celtic language, kind of it went from this south of Ireland, of the island, up north, all through the island, and the Gaels or the Irish crossed over the sea, very short sea, hopped over to Scotland, and that same language just kind of spread further. And it wasn't in the days of like TV or radio where our accents are very centralized these days. But I think when you listen to Irish spoken towards the tip of the north of Ireland, um, it gets to be quite similar in tone to what I call Scottish Gaelic. So
Hmm.
yeah, a couple of 100 years ago, they kind of established their own separate writing schemes and spelling. There's some different sentence grammar and stuff like that. So you can get quite technical about it, and I treat it as two separate languages. So, Karen, if you said to some one of your neighbors that you speak Irish, would they even catch what you were trying to say, like, or would they like correct you? Is that what happens?
Yeah, that's a really
Yeah.
good question. They correct me
All right.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yep, they say, you mean Irish Gaelic, right? So
Yeah.
I've started to just say the Irish language.
Irish language, yeah. And
Hmm.
like I want to say that like we don't think that anybody is wrong saying one term or the other, and some people, depending on who's watching, could get quite angry by me saying that Gaelic is spoken in Scotland. You know, it's very subjective. It depends on where you're from, who you're speaking to. There's no ultimate right or wrong, but that's how we treat it. So just to recap a bit, because I was talking a bit there. In Ireland, we say we speak Irish. That's a Celtic language. Um, I say that Gaelic is spoken in Scotland. It's a very close language to Irish. In Ireland, kids learn Irish at school. They do about 13 years of it, even though a lot of people kind of try to deny that they speak any bit of the language. And you're welcome to call it Irish Gaelic, I think, especially in the context, right? So Karen, depending on the context, you would still say Irish Gaelic sometimes, no? Or do you kind of avoid that term altogether?
I've begun to avoid it completely. That I don't use it at all
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah. Because one of the reasons that this whole thing about the term came up is that we're called Bitesize Irish Gaelic, right? And actually, at the beginning, we called ourselves just Bitesize Irish. And I had some other websites running already with Irish Gaelic in the name, because I saw people were searching using that term a lot. So I spoke to an American friend of mine, Audrey. She does some work on the lessons sometimes too. And I asked her, she said, yeah, just Irish on its own might not be understood, might not be found. And so that's when we made the switch actually to Bitesize Irish Gaelic. So that was a good couple of years ago. And then we got a blog comment just saying he was quite offended, I think, by us using the term Irish Gaelic. And I'd love to call ourselves just Bitesize Irish, but I do want to reach out to the people who call the language Gaelic. And once we find them, we can maybe educate them a bit more about the more nuanced terms,
Right.
But we'll stick with the name for now. We'll see. So, Karen, there was something I wanted to say about the Scottish perspective. Did you want to say anything before that?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Cool. So I put up a video about this topic as well last week, I think, and I got a reply from Evelyn. She lives in Scotland, in the lowlands, in the South Scotland, and she had a very interesting perspective. So I said, for me, we speak Irish in Ireland and Gaelic in Scotland. And she was the other way around. She said, well, in Ireland, I say you speak Gaelic. And in Scotland, I say we speak Gaelic. Because, well, in the Scottish Gaelic language, the word for that language is something like Gaelic. So they just use that pronunciation in English as well. So they say Gaelic. So I don't know how many other people in Scotland use that term to distinguish the different languages, but it was interesting because it's almost opposite to what I call the language. We're almost pointing Gaelic at the other person, right? But hey, so to finish off, Karen, I was thinking that we teach a couple of phrases to somebody watching this video, and we'll write them up on this video. And a nice little conversation starter, I don't know where you'd use it unless maybe you were playing some Irish music, I don't know, in a session like that. But you might say to somebody, An will Gaeilge agat, or agat. An will Gaeilge agat. And that is to ask somebody, do they have Irish? So, Karen, if I ask you, An will Gaeilge agat?
I might reply, to Gaeilge agam.
Og huntach, ta Gaeilge agat. So, Karen has said, I've got Irish. Now, I know these words just sound like a big mumble to somebody who hasn't heard the language before, and even literally they don't translate directly to I speak Irish. Very literally, I'm asking, is Irish at you? And maybe less literally, the translation, the usage is, do you have Irish? So not speak, but do you have Irish? So An will Gaeilge agat, and Karen, you replied?
To Gaeilge agam.
Gehuntach. Anawa. Great. So Karen, you pointed out a couple of nice, simple answers as well. You can just pick off that first word, right? What was it?
Yes. Ta.
Ta. So you can use that as a positive answer to the question, and it will still be understood. I don't want to be too picky on grammar, and I'm not an Irish grammar expert either. I'll never claim to be. But people often say to use the full verb in the sentence. I don't know, does ta work here? Karen, do you want to add?
Well, no, you've caught me. That's a really good point.
We'll go with it. I'm definitely okay with it. I've got nothing against it. And so you can ask somebody An will Gaeilge agat, and they might reply ta. Or the negative to that is, Karen? Simple one
Neil.
word. Neil. Yeah. So tá or Neil. So if you can remember those two words, like you're on the way already. Karen, you had one. If you want to say not yet, I don't speak Irish yet. How do you say that?
Neil me fós.
Well, Neil Fós.
Neil fós.
Neil Fós. Yeah.
That's right.
Sorry, we were talking about this a bit earlier, and I made things a bit too complicated. That's my fault. And one sentence that you might hear very often, for somebody just to say, I have a couple of words. Karen, do you remember that sentence?
I believe it's tá cúpla focal agam.
Tá cúpla focal agam. So that's just literally means I have a couple of words, and it seems to be a phrase, almost a set phrase for somebody to say, I have a couple of words of Irish. And obviously if you say those words in Irish, by default we're speaking about that language, so we don't even mention the name of the language, Gaeilge. So it's a nice one to have if you're learning. Sorry about the ice cream truck if you can hear it outside. So I'll go run through those really quickly to finish off. So Annual Gaeilge agat. Karen, you might say
Tá Gaeilge agam.
Tá Gaeilge agam. Tá Neil Gaeilge agam. Or you could just reply with Tá cúpla focal agam. And that's a nice one just to remember. So Karen, I want to really thank you for spending the time to record this video. If people wanted to find you online, where would you point them to?
Learn Irish Des Moines.blogspot.com, and we're also on Facebook at Learn Irish Des Moines.
Great. And how's the group going? Like you've a couple of, you might call them students. Do you get together? Are you learning Irish together?
Yes, and yes. We get together on a regular basis, and I think they know more than they realize they do. But when I put them on the spot, it's very difficult, as it is for anyone who's learning a new language.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But we did a little quiz this past week, and it didn't go very well.
Okay, well, like practice makes perfect, and what we say on Bitesize Irish Gaelic a lot is there's no simple answer. There will never be a simple answer. And I got an email during the week. It was, okay, I won't mention their name, but they received one of our emails that has a link to some lessons online that you can take for free. And unfortunately, I don't know really what happened because we couldn't work it out, but she was clicking on the links in her emails, and it wasn't going through. It wasn't opening her browser to the lesson. So I wanted to work it out a bit. I gave her the direct link and stuff. Still didn't work out. And in the end, she told me, fine, that does it. I'm not going to learn Gaelic anymore. So, fair enough. But it made me laugh. Because
yes, me too.
I don't mean to laugh at anybody, but I mean, if you're not willing to put in a bit of investment into learning the language, I mean, you're not going to get very far, or you'll just get frustrated at it, I think. Karen, how many years have you been learning Irish now?
Well, I started dabbling in it in 2000, I think it was. I got bored at work on the job.
So that's about 12 years ago when we were recording this video. And how did you not give up with a language in 12 years?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I have to laugh too, because if she has technical issues, I can imagine how quickly that she would give up on the language. Really, Bitesized Irish Gaelic has been a big help to me because I've been able to hear it and test myself and go back over and over again. And then also leading this study group has made a really big difference. So, and I'm also in a place where I can stream the Cahir, the RTE. So I get a lot of exposure to the language now that I didn't use.
Great. And there's so much free stuff, like
Exactly.
TG Cahir, the TV station Radio na Gaeltacht that you can listen to. You know, it's just we're blessed to have such free resources that it's really a glimpse into. You get plonked basically, as we might say, straight into Connemara. You really get a perspective of the area, and we're really lucky to have that. So I'll link you up to those services under this video. So thanks, Karen, and I'd just like to leave this by suggesting to anybody who's still watching the video to please go to bitesizeirish.com or bitesizeirishgaelic.com/beginners, and there you'll be able to pick up, you throw in your name and your email, and you'll be able to get 5 free lessons by email over a couple of days. So you'll be able to basically learn how to introduce yourself, learn how to count to 10, and listen to some of the audio that we have at Bitesize Irish Gaelic. So Karen, just one last time, gur maith agat, thank you. And
Tá
and slán agat, slán.
Slán, slán inis.
Slán.